All right, so hello and welcome to today's webinar, 5 tips to level up your email marketing efforts. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whether you're just getting started or you've been doing email marketing for a while, you may be wondering what you can do to get even better results. Beyond the basics, it really comes down to doing the right things for your business and your audience. If your emails can reflect the needs of your audience and your preferences or their preferences, you can expect to see your results to better benefit your business. Now, today's webinar is not a product demo of Constant Contact. It is a conversation on the best practices and strategies to figure out what works best for you. Now, we have a guide that our guest has put together that provides details and information on how you can take action with these best practices, and we'll be sharing that more towards the end. Let's take a look at our agenda and see more specifically what we're going to cover today. We're going to start with some tips that help you to understand your audience and what they respond to. Then we're going to talk about testing your efforts and looking at your results so that you can see what works and what doesn't. And lastly, we're going to talk about setting up some key features and strategies that will help you to drive results. Before we get into the details, allow me to introduce myself and my guest for today. My name is Stephanie French, and I'm the Senior Producer for webinars here at Constant Contact. And I'm very excited to bring back Bryan Caplan. He is the CEO of Bryan Caplan Marketing. So Bryan, I'll have you hop on, and if you want to say a quick hello.
Hey, Stephanie, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You've joined us in the past for several other webinars, and I know you provide tons of really great, valuable insights. So before we get in too far, I am going to go ahead and launch a poll on your screen. We would really love to know, what is your main barrier to email marketing success? This is a choose one scenario. Is it finding the time to respond to your new subscribers? Low to no engagement from your readers? Not knowing what to send and when to send it? Or do you feel it's understanding your email marketing results? So Bryan, right now I'm seeing 50, probably when it just evened out, actually. So 54% of people are saying low to no engagement from their readers, which I would say is fairly common. The second biggest answer is not knowing what to send and when to send it. Any thoughts there?
Oh, I think we're going to cover both of those today, and we definitely have a few strategies that will help you try to tweak that engagement, get it up for sure.
We do, certainly. And I see another 12% of you are saying understanding your email marketing results. 5% of you so far have said finding the time to respond to new subscribers. And I guess one thing I would, while everybody is putting in their final votes before we close it and share the results, finding time or really not knowing what to send and when to send it, that's all things we're going to cover today. Understanding your marketing results. And also when people say low to no engagement from their readers, typically we find that they've got a different expectation than what's really happening. A lot of times, Bryan, people are out there and they're specifically looking at things like the open rate, which actually isn't even that accurate in today's world. And plus they're expecting something that's way higher than what we typically see, anywhere from about 15 to 23%, depending on the industry there.
You're so right. So right. We call an open rate a vanity metric. So definitely we want to be looking at clicks and engagement instead.
Exactly. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but I'll just share the final results here on the screen. 54% of you said low to no engagement. 28% of you not knowing what to send and when to send it. I would say that's probably how the most common questions and things that we're hearing from people. So thank you for participating there, and let me make sure my screen is displaying. There we go. And let's go ahead and dive in. Tip number one today is to understand your audience. It's really the biggest part of all of this, and it's going to play a theme throughout today. In order to get results, you need to make sure you know your audience. You need to not just be pushing out content and information for the sake of getting it out there or getting promotions out there. So what is the best way, Bryan, to get an understanding of your own audience?
We might have some empaths in the audience. If you're not familiar with what an empath is, it's the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So what we're doing right here and what we're talking about is this idea of putting yourself in the customer's shoes and creating what we call a buyer persona. And a buyer persona has many names and might be called a marketing avatar, a dream customer profile. You see it all around the web, and it may have been referred to as something different, but honestly, it's how you define that ideal customer. And this is the customer that would get your email in this case, or maybe they'd watch a video or go to your blog or visit your website, and they would convert. They might buy, they might fill out a form without any headaches, any hesitation. If we can define that perfect customer, that ideal customer, then we can start writing for them.
So your whole concept here is about the buyer persona. Talk to us about this example we have here and how do we go about creating a buyer persona for our business?
Sure. So when we're talking about a buyer persona, one thing that's important and a common question we get is, will I only have one? Maybe not. You might have two. Some companies that we've worked with have had 100. So it all depends on your customer base. It depends on the different categories of products and services you offer. When we're talking about a buyer persona, really, we're asking questions. We're kind of reflecting, being intrinsic on what is this person? Who are they? Where do they live? What do they do for a living? We start thinking maybe about gender. That's not necessarily something that's important nowadays, more so age range, understanding their level of maturity, their stage of life, how it would communicate to them. Their geography. We're going to have colloquialisms. Up here in the Northeast, we're going to speak a lot differently, maybe even faster than people down, maybe down south. Or maybe in the Southwest, they have different terminology and verbiage that they use that we would want to use for that specific buyer persona. In this case, we use an example of marry. So when we're working with a client, what we like to do is ask some questions, really start chipping away, almost like we're sculpting this buyer persona. And we just came up with this idea of a 74-year-old woman. She's retired engineer, lives in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, has 5 grandkids, enjoys gardening, knitting, museums. She buys online and in catalogs, so that's really important, her buying mechanisms. And also she loves music and romantic movies. As you're starting to come up with content, you want to start thinking about these other facets of your customer with which you can relate to. Not just, hey, here's my product, buy it, but how can I relate to you and get you to think about my product or service without being so direct?
I love that. And I love this whole idea of really imagining your perfect customer or client, because when you start to think about that, you can start to change your email marketing strategy, your design, and everything you're putting in there, and the content and the ways that you're catching their attention. All right, so let's move on to tip 2, which is all about taking that buyer persona and using the right words to catch your audience attention. The stat I want to share here is based on the different studies we've seen out there. The average person, this sounds scary, receives over 100 emails per day. Crazy, right? So you have to be able to stand out in the inbox. And first and foremost, that comes down to the subject line. These are always a popular topic among our audience. Writing a great subject line is going to be so important to catching their attention. So I'd love for you to walk us through some examples of great performing subject lines you've seen and provide us with some tips so that we can be more successful in this area.
Sure. The first tip I'll give you before I even jump into subject lines, we had showed you that buyer persona. Hey, open up a Microsoft Word doc or a Google Doc, go grab an image of someone that might fit the bill, and then print it out. And when you're starting to write your subject lines and the content for your emails, anything else that has to do with marketing, look at that printed out buyer persona and say, what's going to really excite you? What's going to engage you, to attract you to open my email? So again, we're putting ourselves in the shoes of the customers. So I came up, we talked about 4 different categories of subject lines. There's plenty of different ones you can use. I'll tell you some that you want to avoid is like July newsletter, August newsletter. Listen, it's not going to excite me. It's not going to compel me to click. The idea here is that what Steph just said, people are receiving over 100 emails, some of them going to the promotions tab or the spam tab or in their general inbox. So we have to kind of fight through that noise. There's a big noise to signal ratio here. So suspense mystery. Hey, you won't believe what just came in stock. You see this quite a bit with some articles, even some clickbait articles on sites like BuzzFeed and such, and that's a great source to go look at what they're doing with their titles of documents and blogs in order to kind of make it work for your subject lines. So keep them in suspense, get their attention, and then make them click so that they can figure out what it is. My dad always says, you know how to keep someone in suspense? Ask me tomorrow. Then you've got questions. Whenever you ask someone a question, they're on attention. All of a sudden, you've directed it towards them. Now it's their time to talk or their time to respond. So it could be something as, can you imagine? Would you believe? Did you know? You see, did you knows all the time. Those are great subject lines because, again, they break through the noise and now they put the reader on alert, make them want to open the email. FOMO, most human beings, the majority are inclusive, right? We want to be in a community. We want to be involved, included. FOMO, or the fear of missing out, hey, we don't want to be excluded from this. This is where, hey, last call for X deals, last call for this sale. We've used this quite a bit when we've been running multi-day sales or over a holiday weekend. And funny enough, we actually see some of the best results on the last day because people are realizing, oh, the clock's ticking. It's 23rd hour. I've got to get this. And then an announcement. So, again, with moderation, but blank is back in stock for summer. So some people you might have requests at the point of sale at your register, or people are calling in or inquiring, do you have this? Do you have that? It's a great way to catch people's attention because for those people that may have reached out to you and asked you if the product or service is available, others might just be staying mum and keeping quiet. So make an announcement, let them know, because that might actually conjure up some more sales in the inbox.
Awesome. And I think one big tip to keep in mind here is these subject lines, usually you want them to be 7 words or less because those are usually outperforming longer ones. In order to get notice, include that sense of urgency. Someone just asked about a subject line for events. So typically when we say an event, we suggest a series of 3 emails where you're announcing, then you're reminding people, and then a day or two you're providing a last chance reminder for people. For events, especially for webinars like this, we've found some great success with using a sense of urgency in there, like last chance to register or webinar tomorrow in there. So I love things like that. Any other things you want to throw out there for tips when it comes to writing great subject lines?
Everything in moderation, right? So if you're using the same type of subject lines again and again, you're going to see diminishing returns. Law of diminishing returns, I order a pizza, the first slice is great, second slice is okay, third slice, fourth slice, if I even get to it, I'm just sick. So the same kind of thing, if we keep using the same type of subject lines or call outs, then we're going to see diminishing returns with our engagement.
Great point there. Let's talk a little bit about spam filtering here. Guy says that when he uses subject lines like this, he tends to see them land in the spam filter. Any suggestions there to improve that in order for the delivery?
So, with Guy and with anyone who may be having issues with spam filters, it also goes back to your audience, right? So are you emailing to people that may be behind a firewall or have a tech team that is setting up certain filters for the company? Especially financial institutions are a big one, right? That's number one. So we want to look at who the audience is. Number two is, again, there's different studies, right? And I know, Steph, you had a webinar with Litmus. You had worked with Litmus, and Litmus did provide some really good insights on different types of subject lines. Maybe one of the things we could do is share a link to some of those Litmus resources so that Guy and others could consult that.
Yeah, I will share a link in the follow-up email. But one thing I did want to talk about here in terms of that is in the past, we've talked about the use of excessive punctuation or the words free or even all caps as those being filtered into the spam folder. But we're not actually seeing that in most cases these days. A lot of spam filters have actually adjusted to recognize when something seems more spammy versus a real offer that has something free in it. And in a lot of cases, we're actually seeing the word free in all caps actually make it to the inbox. So I definitely say make sure you're understanding who you're sending to, because if you're sending to someone who's using their government email address for work, you're definitely going to run into some more issues. But if you're sending to someone who's more of a consumer with Outlook email address or something like that, you're probably more likely to get through. So think about those things. Also, people were asking about emojis, and this is always a popular topic. So I'll throw some things out there, and then if you have anything to add, Brian, you can.
Sure.
Emojis can be a great way to display emotions, especially when you have to catch someone's attention right in there. However, those different audiences may not respond to the emojis that you choose. And some of them, I am one of those people who they look very similar, or I'm not quite sure what exactly one of those emojis means. So make sure you're sending it out, make sure you're understanding your audience, and also do a little testing with it, because sometimes, depending on who you're sending to or the program, it'll actually show up as a blank box where the emoji should be. Anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are inclined to include several emojis, especially through text messaging and SMS. You'll see the laughing and crying and all those different emojis. Try to keep it to one in your subject line. If you do more than one, then again, you might run the risk of it not showing up, and you're kind of cluttering the subject line with a bunch of graphics instead of getting to the point, capturing their attention.
Yeah, don't use it in every single email too. Unless it's just really on brand for you, I would say mix it up, because they can tend to diminish the value of diminishing your returns there in the subject line if they're saying the same emoji, or you're using too many emojis in your subject lines for every email. So along with the subject line and even the headline within your email, keywords are going to be an important thing. So what advice do you have when it comes to picking the right keywords?
Sure. So, I mean, keywords go back for many of you marketers and business owners. You think of keywords with search engine optimization and your website, but it also has to do with capturing attention and driving engagement. So what we want to do is think about what are some of the different words or terminology that potential customers use when they first contact us, when they're asking us questions. Those frequently asked questions play in really big. And also thinking back to our buyer persona, thinking of their hobbies, favorite pastime, interests. We want to try to incorporate some of those keywords, and we'll show you that in a little bit. Now, there's a tool here called Google Trends, and you can go to g.co/trends. It's a free tool as long as you're signed into your Google account. What it does is it gives you the relative popularity of different terms. So for instance, if we have any pizza shop owners, you might be considering, adding a new menu item or highlighting a menu item you already have. So you might have gluten-free versus thick crust versus thin crust. Well, you can use Google Trends to validate which one is really the most popular relative to the others at this given time. You might lead with that in your subject line and even use that for calls to action, which would be links or buttons in your email.
I love what you said here about really paying attention to what they ask, because we often describe our business and our products and our services differently than even our customers would. So we've got to think about the exact words that they're using in order to think of those good keywords. And we've got Dallas who's helping behind the scenes. He's going to share a link to Google Trends for those of you who want to gain access to that. And we'll be sharing it on in the follow-up email as well. So let's walk through an example here on how we can take this information from the buyer persona for the subject lines and these keywords and everything we know about our audience and use it to catch their attention. So you've got an example here for Jack. If you want to walk us through the keywords that are going to get Jack's attention.
Sure. And just to kind of proactively answer the question some of you may have, how do we come up with these buyer personas? Listen, ask questions. So you could have a survey or a form that you ask or send to your different customer base, get them to answer. Make notes or have your staff make notes at point of sale when they're talking to people. What are they saying? What are they mentioning? These are all things that are going to help us again mold this buyer persona. So for Jack, just to go through in case you can't see the font, the text, 38 years old male, lives in Tampa. He's an insurance agent with 2 kids. He enjoys fitness, kayaking, and cryptocurrency. And then he buys online or via apps. So he's very digital, very tech driven, loves audiobooks and action movies. So keywords and kind of categories of keywords that we would focus on, anything having to do with fitness, health, wellness. If he's really taking care of himself and is trying to, or is in a regimen where he's exercising quite a bit, really focused on personal fitness, then we might talk about his business fitness or the fitness of a certain aspect of his business. Where he likes cryptocurrency, hey, mentioning Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any of the other coins that are out there, that may be something that catches his interest in the inbox. And finally, since he does do a lot of purchasing online or through apps, we might want to talk about our e-commerce options or how it's really convenient to shop online and they can open the email to find out more.
Great example. So walk us through some of the examples for actual subject lines that we might use for him.
Sure. So action movies, I looked at some different taglines. If any of you have watched Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. With great deals comes great responsibility. So an action fan or someone who's into those superhero movies might actually see that and say, oh, you know what, let me click, because it resonates with them on a different level, not just from a business trying to sell them, but someone that understands a different facet of them. Fitness, health, hey, you've heard the term body, mind, and soul. Body, mind, soul, and wallet, we've got you covered. And this is where you might have some deals inside, promotions, a special savings offer that's exclusive for a limited time. Cryptocurrency, savings to get you through crypto winter. Now, of course, this is more time sensitive. Anybody that's in crypto would understand it. If you're not, don't worry about it. But really, this is something where it's like, hey, maybe you've lost your shirt in the crypto market right now, but we have some savings so that you can skate by and actually still enjoy yourself. And then finally, two kids. You know the old one, kid tested, mother approved, kid tested, parent approved. Make it general. That's something, again, that would stand out. People would be like, I remember that commercial. I think it was Kicks. And with that, they're going to say, you know what? This is a little creative. It's kitschy. I'm going to click.
Awesome. So I have a question from Chris. What about subject lines to get nonprofits trying to get donations?
Well, again, it would go back to your audience, the type of service or the benefit that your nonprofit's offering, right? So if we're trying to get donations, just asking isn't going to be enough. Hey, we need your donations. That it's like pandering in the inbox, and we don't want to do that. Instead, we could highlight the benefits, why you're going to want to donate. So we might say your donation will help X people or X children or X pets or X dogs. So we're actually trying to quantify what they're going to do by clicking and then taking the action of donating. Really, for a nonprofit, it's more, most of the time, more emotional. You're trying to hit on an emotional level, relate to them, and get them to visualize past the point of just clicking on this email or clicking on a button, understanding what their actions are going to do.
The emotion, and that's always something that'll bring me in. You can do it if you're in retail or whatever, but it definitely should be playing a role for nonprofits. If my favorite nonprofit sends me an email about saving dogs, oh, I've always got to click into it. I want to see the picture of the dog, and I want to see how I can help because you've drawn me in with a great subject line
I
and
always
grabbed
think
my
of
emotions.
The Sarah McLachlan song "In the Arms of an Angel" and that pet video. Yep,
Yes,
gets you every time.
exactly. It sure does. Another part of using the right words to capture your audience's attention is going to be storytelling in your emails. So tell us a little bit more about storytelling, some great examples you've seen, and how we can incorporate storytelling into our email strategy.
So first, for those of you who are sitting there thinking, I don't have any stories to tell, you most certainly do. I've met with a lot of different business owners over the years, and just after asking a couple of questions, we really got to a point where they said, holy moly, I have a whole stack of stories I can share. Going back to myself, when I was starting, actually before I started the agency, I was working at a technology startup. And we had a sales coach who turned out to be one of my mentors over my whole career of starting the agency. His name's Steve Borsetti, great guy. And he taught me, hey, before someone's going to buy your products and services, they have to buy you. So by telling stories, you kind of are giving them a glimpse into who you are, who's the person behind the curtain running the business. A brand is so much more, and we've learned that over the past couple of years, than just a logo and some creative taglines. It's also the people that are powering that brand. and it's the people that are being provided for by that brand with a roof over their heads and food on their table. So the more personal we can make these stories, not, to the point where it's like TMI, too much information, but personal enough so that you feel like you know the person writing. In these three examples, and of course, the text is small, you can't really see them, I share three different stories. One about how my first business was a complete failure, an apparel startup where we thought we knew exactly what we were doing, and it failed miserably. And really, the story goes into what I learned and how I wished I had certain resources or support in order to kind of get ahead. The second one is talking about when I was starting the agency, and it's talking about some of the different aspects of, in this case, a doggy daycare, and how I had asked Katie, the owner of the doggy daycare, hey, I've been coming here for 2 years. You take care of my little guy. He's like a son to me. Why haven't you asked me for a review? And it goes into this whole idea of how she didn't want to impose. So many of us business owners can probably relate to that, not wanting to ask for a review and impose. So again, it allowed me to relate with many of you, talk about my origins, but at the same time, bring it back to what we were trying to offer, which was an accountability service. And then the third one, it's talking about how, in this case, I'm spouting out stuff. It's been years of doing this. This isn't just I studied a sheet last night and here I am. So it's a lot of learning, retention, and also repetition is the mother of all skill. So it talks a little bit more about how I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I was hired to do SEO and had to go on Google and look up what SEO was. So if you want to talk about someone that really had to learn and cut their teeth as they were going, here I am. And a lot of us can relate to that as well. So all three of these stories help you to relate and ultimately understand what we're trying to offer in our emails.
Awesome. So there's a couple of questions here. So this first one is from Philip. How do you choose a format for a story, or does it matter?
In this case, Philip, that's a great question. These are long form letters, so they're just mostly text based. You see a button at the bottom of the first one. So we decided to go really text based. Sometimes you're going to break it up. You might have images in there. And when you use images in your email, you want to make sure they link somewhere because people are prone to click on those images. Or you might have a video, and the video is kind of a summary of that story. And of course, we can't put an actual video file in the email, but we can include a link to Vimeo or YouTube where people could watch that video, or we embed that video on our website, bonus points, and now we get traffic to our website, plus they can fill out a form to learn more about what we do. So it really, again, depends on your audience. In this case, we're talking to people and really trying to educate them, get through to them that, hey, this is, you have a lot going on, but understand where we come from too, so that we can all come to the same page and try to build together.
Great. So two people at least are asking, Julie and Jacob are asking, are emails this text heavy really working?
You'd be surprised, but yes, because you have different audiences. So to some, breaking it up and there was a constant contact study many years ago that found that 20 lines of text and 3 images were going to induce the highest click-through rate because it wasn't too much text and it was just enough images to complement the written word, but at the same time wasn't too many options or too many visual cues. In this case, what we did is we used anchor text. So you see the links in the blue, and those are highlighted. Those are hyperlinks that went to a landing page where we were offering a program. We actually saw amazing click through on these because the people that did start reading the story did feel compelled to continue reading it, felt compelled to also take action and click. So yes, they do work, but it
I
depends
com
on your audience.
I completely agree. You've got to draw me in right in that first line of text with a great story or opening hook, and then get me to keep reading, and then we get down to those links that you've mentioned. So Bryan in the guide will share a little bit later. He's got some more great tips and suggestions for writing great stories in there.
Definitely.
For now, though, let's move on to tip 3, which is to review your email results and do some testing. Because when you're sending emails, you're going to get a wealth of reporting information, and that should be informing your future marketing decisions and improving your results. Now, opens and clicks, we kind of mentioned it before with the poll there, but these are typically vanity metrics. They are leading indicators, but especially when it comes to opens these days, they're not very accurate. And a lot of that has to do with the Apple privacy changes that happened last year. One of the biggest things that we do suggest looking at is your conversions. A conversion is actually anything where you're asking your audience to take action. Did they take that action? So did they purchase? That's probably what a lot of you are looking to do in your emails to get them to purchase. Did they do it? If you want them to call, did they call you? If you want them to download something, did they download and click? Did they donate or volunteer if you're in the nonprofit world? Now, a few other things that you want to use your reportings for or your reports for are your clicks in order to drive more engagement, as well as finding your best send time. Do you want to dive in and talk a little bit more about those two bullets?
Sure. So when it comes to finding your best send time, as Steph had alluded to, the thing is, you really can't rely on opens. Even before Apple's privacy, we've been doing email marketing for 15 years. We would see that you would have someone open the email at 7:52, 7:53, 7:55, and it's because I called them, they were keyboard peckers. So they would actually go up and down, and then their preview pane would open the email. Every time it opened, it would count as an open. Well, that didn't help me very much. It didn't help me gauge interest. So instead, clicks are something that we do want to look at, because if we send out an email, and let's say it's Friday at 6 a.m. that we send out the email, and we start seeing clicks come in at maybe 8:15 or 9:30 a.m. on a Friday, then okay, maybe we want to send a little bit closer to that. Maybe that would induce more clicks because the email would be at the top of the inbox. So we're looking at clicks to decipher what the engagement is and if we can get closer to that kind of hotspot.
Awesome. So Michelle is asking, where do we see conversions? Do you want to tackle that one first?
So conversions, you're going to see them in different places. If you're using Constant Contact's e-commerce tools, it'll be built into your reporting, right? But if you're using a third-party tool like a Shopify, BigCommerce, you might see those in the website platform itself. Also, there's a free tool called Google Analytics that I teach on quite a bit in my other life as a Grow with Google presenter. And that's actually a tool that's free to set up. You install it on your website. That's going to allow you not only to see how many website visits you get, but as Steph was talking about, the events. If someone clicks on a certain button, you can set an event. If they read a certain amount of a blog post, like 30% or 50% of the page, that's an event. They fill out a form, that's an event. So conversions do not have to be purchases. They're just important actions that a prospect takes to either turn them into a more qualified prospect or potentially a customer.
Awesome. So the other part of this is using those clicks to drive engagement. In Constant Contact, there's a tool called click segmentation, which I love. It does a lot of the work for you. We're talking about making sure you understand your audience, and in a lot of ways, you're going to want to segment your list. So basically split your list into smaller groups of like contacts so that you can send that really relevant information that catches their attention. So here on this next slide, we've got some examples for different types of businesses, and I'll have you walk us through different kinds of segments we could think about for sending targeted messages.
Sure. So retail, we've used this quite a bit. My brother-in-law, for instance, had a barbershop up here in Manchester, New Hampshire, and when we'd send out emails, we would highlight some different services: hair color versus braiding versus the regular, fade or something like that. And when people would click, we were able to segment them because we knew what type of haircut they were into. That allowed us to segment the list and start sending them emails that really spoke to what they were interested in. Same thing with retail products purchased. We have a client that sells, different kinds of Adirondack chairs. Well, one of the emails was the different colors. We can get down into what color people like. If you're a florist, you might have different floral arrangements. So they might have lilies, tulips, roses, and you can see what are people interested in based off what they clicked. So again, they're showing you their intent by clicking, and by taking advantage of a tool or a feature like segmentation based off the click. Now we're being smarter marketers. VIPs, when it comes to segmenting your list, these might be people that you classify in different ways. Someone had asked about events. They might be, people that come to all of your events. They're evangelists that invite other people. They might be co-hosts of events. Past customers, same kind of thing. We can segment those, and depending on if you have the data at your POS, your point of sale system, or online, you can even segment your customers based off how much they've spent on your site. We did this with a coffee site where we figured out all the people that were spending 2,500 and more, which seems like a lot, but a lot of commercial customers on coffee and different kinds of office products. And then we would send them special emails targeted to them. Business to business, current clients, of course. Here's the thing. I'll give you a great example of this. An insurance agency that I worked with, they were providing me with home insurance, property insurance, auto insurance, business insurance. Well, I get an email for a boat show. I don't have a boat. They don't insure a boat. So why did I get that email? There was total confusion, and guess what? I unsubscribed. So part of it is understanding who your current clients are and what products and services they're consuming. Past clients as well. We do a lot of win back campaigns, winning them back. So we might write a little note and say, hey, here's a reason why you want to work with us again, or here's an announcement of a new product or service we're offering. And then services interested. So we had shown those long form emails. Hey, whether you do that or you break it into sections and you highlight, for instance, a realtor on the call might be showcasing an article for home buyers and home sellers. We've used those quite a bit to segment the lists into potential home buyers and potential home sellers, so we can figure out what service they're interested in. And for nonprofits, again, VIP donors, who are the ones that are opening their wallets either multiple times a year or they're actually giving a considerable amount. How can we really keep them in the fold and get them to consider giving more? Volunteers, finding good people is hard, so we want to make sure we segment that list and then reiterate the benefits of working with us and helping. And then new supporters, this is where we would paint a picture. We might use visuals like images or a video to show them what their time or their donated money is going to do and how it's going to benefit others.
That's another great place that storytelling is going to play an important role. Now, as with anything in marketing, what may work for one of you in the audience is probably not going to work for another, because all of you have a different business model and audience. So this is where we're going to suggest that you test everything in your email strategy to determine what works best for you and for your audience by looking at the results. So what are some of the types of things we should be testing here?
Sure. Well, we're going to want to test subject lines. That's a big one. We're going to want to test the type of content, that long form letter that you saw in my examples versus shorter paragraphs with buttons or clear calls to action, bold links. Maybe it's going to have images as well. That flows into your email design. Again, different audiences are going to react differently to the organization and the structure of your emails. So some people might want to see multiple options. Some people might just want to see one option. Great example I heard and way back when I was actually teaching a whole bunch of constant contact classes, I heard about a florist that sent out right before Valentine's Day 4 options for bouquets for the one you love, and then did a split campaign, sent out to half of his list 1 bouquet to show you love them. Well, the one that had only one option got more conversions because people didn't have to think through it. They didn't have that analysis paralysis. Like we said, calls to action. If you're a restaurant, and again, we're thinking about our buyer persona, if we're playing to college kids, get your grub on is a great call to action for a button. Or if we're going to talk to someone that's a little bit more established, maybe has a family, feed your family, get our meal deal. So it might be something different. And of course, we're testing the send day and the send time, and we're really not looking at opens, more so looking at clicks and then the resulting conversions.
I completely agree with that. Don't just pay attention to them opening or clicking. Having them take that end result when you send on a specific day or time can be really valuable information for you. I know several of you were asking about what days and times we recommend. Really, it's all about finding what works for your business and your audience. Because if you're targeting teachers, you're probably not going to want to send that email right during the day. Maybe at lunchtime, you might do a test send there, but you're probably more likely to catch them either maybe before school or after school, for example.
Great example.
Let's move on to tip 4, which is to resend your email to those who didn't open. So tell us about this feature, because if you're in the Plus package, this is something you can easily turn on for your most important emails. But tell us about this tip and why you're recommending it.
So this is a feature that was introduced, a few years ago to the system. Before that, I used to have to export our lists and I would have to figure out who opened, who didn't, re-upload the list. This is a game changer right here. We all know that we have 24 hours in the day, so this is really helpful in maximizing our time and also getting more visibility, more eyes on our email campaigns. The thing that you want to note here is basically when you send an email, you have the option, if, as Steph had said, you're in the Plus package for Constant Contact, where you can designate that you're going to resend that email to did not opens. In that case, you might choose a different subject line. So now you're getting two impressions in the inbox with under different guises, or basically they're under different kind of premises, if you will. So one thing you want to note when you're testing this out, you're going to not do it on every email. Again, moderation. That's huge. Diminishing returns. I've seen people that insist on doing this every time. And then what happens is people say, oh, I'm going to get the email again in a few days. So they unsubscribe instead. It's easier for them to do that. Flight or fight. Resend on day 4 is a best practice. That way you're giving them enough time, especially if you send your email on a Thursday or Friday and they're not actively looking at their inbox. It gives them enough time where they could open the email and act on it, or that they're going to be reminded again. And like we said, adjust the subject line. It could be that you use Constant Contact's personalization feature in the subject line and mention them by name. It could be that you insert an emoji or you try rephrasing it. Maybe you go from having 7 words in the subject line to only 4 or 5. So you can test it out. And that's the beauty of marketing, because it's a marriage of art and science. The art is in the design of the campaign. The science is in you really being kind of like an evil genius or a mad genius, and you're trying to test out different ways to see how we can get them to open, engage, and ultimately convert with our content.
I love it. And I can't stress enough, please do not send this on every email or use the resend. I would only choose it for your most important emails. So if you're really wanting people to register for your webinar or your event, use it on an email like that. All right, let's move on to the final tip, which is to use a welcome email in order to drive engagement and start your relationship with your subscribers off on the right foot. So tell us about this.
So many of you may have a streaming service or know someone that has a streaming video service: Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, HBO, I can go on and on. And many of you may have encountered when you go to open or start a show or movie that you see that spinning circle and it keeps spinning and spinning. Well, as consumers, we're hardwired to expect instant gratification. That means when I click on something or I go to open something, right away it happens. And so with this, what we want to do is play to that consumer psychology, that idea of instant gratification. And this feeds into, if someone joins your mailing list, we want to make sure that we provide that instant gratification in the form of a welcome email. They're joining a list or a community. We want to welcome them into the fold and let them know not only that they're a part of the list and that they're valued, but also we can use this as an opportunity to promote something or set expectations. And I think we have some good bullet points here to showcase that.
Yeah, do you want to tell us about those tips?
Sure. So a warm, friendly greeting. It's not just thanks for joining. It's, hey, welcome. How are you? Imagine walking into a store and someone's going, you've probably seen that, a salesperson, they could care less. Would you want to receive an email like that? Would you feel like you're cared about and that your money is actually valued when you open your wallet and use your card or your cash, that they actually care? So a warm, friendly greeting to welcome them to the fold. Sending promptly. Fortunately, with Constant Contact, when someone joins a list, you can use this automation feature, which is really cool. It triggers the welcome email to send automatically. In fact, afterwards, you're going to be able to download our email marketing guide and you'll see the welcome email in action. So you'll be able to see it right there. You want to include what we call a nurture track. So that might be 1 email, but more likely 2, 3, 4 emails where you're setting expectations. So the welcome email might say, hey, you're going to get an email in a couple days, or over the next few weeks, I'll send out a few more messages so that you can get to know us a little better and understand how we can help improve your quality of life, personally or professionally. Offering a deal is a big one. And in the email guide, we talk about that, some great examples where not only are you playing into instant gratification and they're already warm to your brand, but now you're giving them a reason to act, some sort of deal that's exclusive. And then again, providing next steps. We love to have expectations set for us. The more we know, the less we're going to be apprehensive or even have angst about the process of moving forward with a business.
That's great. I really love your point here about offering a deal in your welcome email, because we know that people will typically sign up to your mailing list for three main reasons. They want to get exclusive offers or discounts, they want to receive exclusive content and information, or they'll simply sign up to support your business or organization. So in many times it can be good to offer that when you're asking people to sign up. And this welcome email is such a great place to fulfill on that offer and start to introduce them to your business or organization. Let them get to know you.
Exactly.
All right, so we're in a good place. We have tons and tons of really great questions. So I'd like to start to wrap up now so that we can get to all of those. And
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and let you recap a few of these tips and also just share any final thoughts you have with this example we have here on the screen.
Of course. So I'll actually play to the example first for any of you that are in New England or the Boston area. Maybe some of you are runners. One of our longtime clients and an organization that we really love supporting is Boston's Run to Remember. So with that, of course, the pandemic had really taken a toll on live events, especially marathons, half marathons. This year, we were fortunate enough to work with Steve and the team at Boston's Run to Remember, and through the email marketing, they attributed a lot of the success that they were able to make a comeback. So we were able to send out these emails where we understood the buyer. Remember Jack and how we were talking about he was into fitness and everything else. We were sending emails to people that were really, they're energetic, they're lively, they're exhilarated. And a lot of them might be go, go, go until a Sunday. I'll get to that in a second. Using the right words to capture attention. Steph had mentioned, with events, we were saying last chance and kind of using some FOMO. Again, we were tapping into that psychology because these people have most likely run in this race before and they didn't want to miss out on that experience again, especially after the last 2 years. We were looking at the results and we were testing, we were figuring out where could we tweak the button or the graphic, what call to action or verbs could we use so that we could drive more people signing up for the race. We did use resend to did not opens, but again, sparingly, not with every email. And we did see that it had a nice little uptick in engagement. And when people signed up from Boston's Run to Remember website, we used a welcome email to welcome them into the fold, provide that instant gratification, and drive engagement. Back to that point about understanding your audience. Again, I told you these are people that are probably go, go, go. A lot of them are going maybe 9 to 5, maybe 9 to 8 every day, who knows? And so we assumed, and we assumed correctly, that on Sundays, that's the time when they're going to probably get some stuff done, maybe have family time or personal time. And at night, they're going through trying to figure out what their week is. They're organized. Well, Sunday night, when we would send these emails, was one of our best times for driving conversions and race signups. So again, understanding our audience, we were able to help this amazing organization to make a huge comeback.
That's not something you would typically think about when sending on a Sunday night, but that's why it's important to look at your group, look at your buyer persona, and understand exactly who you're sending to, because when you start to incorporate that, you can get to that best time to send for yourself. All right, so Bryan, I'm going to have you briefly talk about your guide. We'll have Dallas share a link to it, or you can just pull out your smartphone and capture it with the QR code there on the screen.
Yep. So my team spent quite a long time putting together an email marketing guide. It summarizes a lot of the points that we covered today, but in more detail, gives you context and even examples. We also share a lot of different tools and resources that are free to you so that you can download this, have it on your desktop, or print it out if you want. It's about 20-something pages. You'll be able to refer to it as you're going through your marketing. Of course, it applies to email marketing, but a lot of the principles that we cover also can apply to your other portions of marketing, digital marketing in general, social media, blogging, even traditional marketing. So you can scan the code, or you can go to bryancaplan.com/go, and you'll find the download there.
I love it. It's such a great resource that Bryan created to go along with this. So real quickly, I want to let you all know at Constant Contact, we offer so many easy to use digital marketing tools that Bryan and I have kind of alluded to throughout today. Email is really at the core, but there's automation, social media posting tools, digital ads, surveys, events, and so much more. Now, we also have some really great integrations with many of the tools you might already be using. And this is great because it's going to save you time, which is a resource that there's not enough of for all of us. We integrate with Stripe, Canva, Vimeo, Eventbrite, Salesforce, Facebook, and even Google Ads, and so many more, hundreds and hundreds of tools out there to make your life easy. So if you don't already have an account, you can sign up for a free trial. Just go to constantcontact.com, or we'll share a link in the chat window there. And Bryan, you've got a really great marketing community that you've put together, and I'd really love for the audience here today to join you there and get so much more information from you and your team.
Thank you, Steph. I appreciate that. You guys can all go to bryancaplan.com/go. You'll be able to join our free marketing community as well. And if you do start that trial of Constant Contact, download the email guide so you have it right there so you can really hit the ground running.
Awesome. So just a note, when we end the webinar today, a survey is going to pop up on your screen, and it's just 2 simple questions. So take a minute or 2 to let us know what you thought about the webinar today. So tons and tons of great questions. So let's get to those. This first one comes from Patty. Is there any concern about using negative sounding words such as can't, won't, don't, etc.? And I'm assuming that's referring to the subject line.
I don't believe so. I think, again, if it's all about what you're exuding, right? So if we're sending can'ts, don'ts, won'ts, and all the negative words in every email, then we might look like doom and gloomers in the inbox, and we don't want to have that title or that label. So I think every once in a while, like, you won't want to miss this. You can't afford to lose or to pass this up. Those are great, and especially working with FOMO. But again, you're going to want to change it up.
I completely agree. Sometimes things like that can actually make me stop and think like, oh, am I going to miss something? Or what happens if I don't do this and see what's in this email and take advantage of whatever it is? So use it sparingly. Christina asks, so you would recommend creating different lists for each user group types and send modified personalized mailouts for each of those?
I'd say what you have to do is be honest with yourself and the amount of time that you have, the bandwidth that you have. We've alluded to the fact that we all only have 24 hours in the day. All of us have that in common. So if you are just starting out, maybe one campaign is going to be working, but as you start getting more comfortable and confident, competent in the platform, then yes, I'd highly recommend, being a smarter marketer, trying to segment your lists. And even it's really simple in Constant Contact to we create all the time master templates for our clients, and then we can duplicate them. So we can create a new version of it, tweak it a little bit, maybe change the subject line, some of the calls to action, an image, and send it out to a specific segment. Once you start getting good at that, you'll definitely be able to make sure that you're hitting those people with the message they need in order to take action.
Agreed. And one thing you want to be careful of there is you don't want to over segment your list. So think about what's going to get you value in return. Because if you end up sending to like 5 or less email subscribers because of how far you've segmented, that might be a little too far. So make sure you're not overdoing it there, because if you're not sending to a big enough segment or group of people, it can be detrimental and kind of a little bit of a waste of time there.
Agreed.
So Andy asks, do you have a recommendation for subject lines for B2B marketing emails? And this is really in your wheelhouse because you are B2B marketing.
Yeah, Andy, it depends on your vertical, what types of services you're providing. I mean, there's a lot of different B2B businesses, right? But again, we're thinking of if your audience is small business, what's going to play into them? Saving time, saving money, making my life easier, and allowing me to spend more time on personal things. So increasing my focus, productivity, those types of things. It again depends. If you're an accountant, it might be financial services. Hey, we can find really some great ways during tax season to help you save more. Or we can help you find grants if you're a certain type of business to try to find free money to help you grow. So again, depends on your vertical.
Love it. Lots of questions about the dog coming in. That's my dog, and his name is Dudley. He's an adorable 60-pound dog. All right, so Anne asks, is there data to use with older adults who are always frightened of spams? Is it better to use their name or not?
That's a really good question. That's going to be something that's going to be case by case. Again, there are certain sensitivities depending on the area you live in, the region, and depending on their age group, right? So you don't want to scare them off by using too much information. But at the same time, personalization, I would still wager to bet that those people love being referred to by name. Hi, Patty. Hi, Sam. Hi, John. So if you do have the wherewithal, you do have it saved in your contact list where you have their first name, I would use that. That's a great asset in order to break through the noise and connect with them in the inbox.
Great. I see a couple of people asking about GIFs. What do you recommend if you're thinking about using animated GIFs, and how do you use them effectively?
Oh, we've definitely used those. One, make sure that it's footage that you can use. So you want to make sure that it's either royalty-free stock footage that's for commercial use, or it's your own videos that you've converted into animated GIFs or GIFs, however you want to pronounce it. I call them GIFs. GIF is the peanut butter. So again, that's something where we've used it to draw attention. If you have a video, then you can take the extra time, you can actually create an animated GIF where it's catching people's attention, letting them know, click on this, you're going to see a video. When we've had drawings or special events, like for instance, there's a realtor in South Shore, Massachusetts, Dakota Riley, who advertised or promoted a Bruins ticket giveaway. So what do? We put in an animated GIF of the Bruins playing, and that caught people's attention, got them to click and enter the drawing. So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, but just know that if you do use animated GIFs, most likely people will click on them. So make sure they're linked somewhere.
I love that, and I love the tip about linking because they're great at having that motion within the email itself that grabs people's attention, and you've got some great examples there.
There's a lot of science behind it, but we don't have the time to go into it.
Yes, definitely. German asks, why are keywords important in emailing if they're not going to attract search engine traffic?
So German, going back again to the whole idea, of course, keywords have to play into search engine optimization, your ability to be found on the web by Google and other search engines. But at the same time, these keywords are going to provide context to readers, and it's also going to help them determine if they want to pay attention to your email. So if we're using a tool like Google Trends, we can see what's actually relevant to these people. A great example that we didn't cover, I spoke to someone that provides sleep consultations, and she kept going in really hard with the idea of sleep regression. No one was looking for sleep regression. It was too technical. Instead, people were looking for, why is my 2-year-old up at 3 in the morning? So we want to actually find out how to get toddlers to sleep. That's something that would make more sense for our audience. And again, it all goes back, it's full circle into knowing your audience, listening to their frequently asked questions and the lingo they use when they're communicating with you and your team, and ultimately using those keywords in your subject lines and in your calls to action.
Awesome. I love that. Now, how do the pre-headers affect the impact of clicks? And Tracy's asking that question.
I liken pre-headers to, it's a preview, right? So your subject line grabs their attention, your pre-header gives them a little bit more context on why they should click. I've seen a lot of people who will just copy the subject line and paste it into the pre-header. It's a missed opportunity. This is another, 8 to 10 words plus where you can tell them, hey, don't miss this great deal, or we're announcing a new service, plus check out these events coming up. So you're capturing attention for one thing, but then those other readers who may not be interested in that specific service or what you're highlighting in the subject line, they might see the pre-header text and then be inclined to click and open.
Awesome. So you've provided so much great information for us today, Bryan. So I want to thank you so much for being here. We're right at the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of yours and our audience's time today. So thank you all for joining and participating with us, sending in your questions. I apologize, I know we didn't get to all of them, but Bryan's community here is definitely a great resource for so many great questions on email marketing, and I've even worked with Bryan on some other digital marketing topics as well.
Thank you, Steph. I appreciate that. And I welcome you all to join at bryancaplan.com/go.
Definitely. So thanks again for joining. And again, if you could fill out that short survey and let us know what you thought about the webinar today, that would be great. And we'll send you the follow-up email with the recording, most likely by the end of today, but by the end of tomorrow at the very latest. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Stay well.